Good evening, I'm Pedro Hazel Jr., pinch hitting for Nisa Petrilli.
I'm Jay Kaplan.
I'm Steve Ferguson.
And I am Sean Roman.
And this is the On the Sports Lines College Football Preview. College football kicks off on Labor Day weekend, so tonight we'll look at the upcoming season, from the preseason rankings to Heisman Watch, from must-see games to the new Final Four playoff, all that and much more. As always, we want to hear from you, so email us at fanspeak@onthesportslines.com. Send your tweets to @onthesportslines and your posts to facebook.com/onthesportslines. We may just read them on the show.
We will, Sean.
Florida State, Alabama, Oregon, and Oklahoma are the first four in both the AP and ESPN USA preseason polls. Will they be the Final Four at season's end? Our panel will tell us yes or no and why in a modified lightning round segment. All in on defending champ FSU and then individually on the other three. Number one, FSU. Will the Seminoles be there at the end? Jay, start us off.
Yeah, because I think Jameis Winston is a year older, hopefully wiser, and I think quite possibly better. His second season in an offense that produced some prolific numbers, 67% completion, over 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. Gets 4/5 of his O-line back. His number one receiver, Rashad Green, is back. And Nick Leary, who's a matchup nightmare, is back. And if the chemistry they built last season remains intact, I think they got a good shot to defend their title. And Winston may have a shot at pulling off an Archie Griffin.
Yeah, he might. I mean,
Steve's up.
Okay.
and I also have to go with Florida State too, but I'm going to look at the defensive side of things. Sure, besides Jameis Winston, who's a phenomenal quarterback already, you also have to look at Jalen Ramsey. You have to look at Mario Edwards, P.J. Williams, Ronald Darby, and Nate Andrews. While these guys aren't the most proven, some of them, they are definitely very talented. If you remember their defense from last year, they are tremendous.
My view, Jameis Winston is a mammoth scumbag, and I hope there's
All right, Sean, stay on point here with the football.
I hope there's some type of karmic justice.
So you hope he gets knocked
out.
out of the game.
That's
However,
what he's wishing for.
I don't think they're going to do it because they benefited from a tremendously easy schedule last year. I mean, they had the Idaho Vandals on their schedule, and they scored 80 points. Their other big victories were against BC. The biggest one was Clemson. They blew them out. They also had to play the mighty Duke. And then finally, when they played a team that played elite competition all year in Auburn, they trailed for 90% of the game. So this year, even if they make the playoffs, they're going to have to win 2 such games. I don't think they're going to do it. They will not repeat.
All right.
Sean, number 2, Alabama. Will the Tide roll into the Final Four?
Absolutely. Top to bottom over the last 5 years, Alabama is just quality. You ever hear like this hypothetical debate? Let's put the worst NFL team last 5 years, Jacksonville Jaguars, against the best college team. Over the last 5 years, if I would have had to choose the college team to play the worst NFL team, it always would have been Alabama. And this playoff system gives Alabama some breathing room. You know, now just instead of fighting for one of two top spots, they've doubled their chances, and quality wins out in that race. That's why I definitely think Alabama's going to be there.
Steve, number 3, Oklahoma. Are the Sooners Final Four material?
Yeah, they definitely are, because if you remember the Sugar Bowl, how well Trevor Knight played. Trevor Knight, their quarterback, was outstanding. Freshman quarterback that game, and he had a tremendous game. 4 touchdowns, 355 yards against Alabama, a defense that nobody does that to except maybe Johnny Manziel. And there are those, excuse me, who say that he is now almost Manziel-like, minus the antics, of course, of Manziel. But I think they're definitely a top 4 team.
And Jay, number 4, Oregon. Will the Ducks still be flying when they select the Final Four?
Yeah, I think so. Marcus Mariota is going to lead them there. As always, the focus is on the warp speed offense of the Oregon Ducks. The question is whether or not they have enough playmakers so that not everything falls on Mariota's shoulders. He is coming off a sprained MCL. They lost their number one returning wide receiver, Braylon Addison, to a torn ACL. A lot's going to now be on the shoulders of Keenan Lowe to become Mariota's top target. They do have a great 1-2 punch at running back. Brian Marshall is the Pac-12's top returning rusher. Tyler Thomas is a good change-up back. They do have the conference's best offensive line, though left tackle Tyler Johnstone's ACL tear is a bit of a blow. Defense is better than most people think. Their secondary is really, really good. 2 big games on the schedule committee are going to be looking at September 6th against Michigan State and November 1 against the defending Pac-10 champs Stanford. Ducks get a bit of a break. They do get both of those games at home. If they can win both of them, I think they're a lock.
Yeah, that helps.
Time now to look at the preseason Heisman watch.
I guess we don't have to watch the season if we.
Nope, we got it all locked up.
No.
Jay and Steve will look at 2 of the favorites, and Sean will handicap the field. His dark horse is always interesting.
Oh,
Steve,
yes.
Jameis Winston is looking to be the first repeat Heisman since Archie Griffin in 1974-75. What are his chances?
Normally I would say it would be very hard for somebody to duplicate what he did last year.
Yeah.
But
40 touchdowns, 4,000 yards.
I mean, and he won the BCS championship on his birthday. You can't have it better than that at age 21. But because he knows the offense that much better, and because defensively this team is so strong and his confidence has to be soaring, I think if anybody can win that again, it will be him.
That's interesting.
Jay, Marcus Mariota is considered to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Yes, sir.
What are his chances?
Honestly, I think they're very good, but I think the key is he has to lead Oregon to the Pac-12 title and a berth in the Final Four. Had a great season last year, 63% completion, over 3,600 yards, 31 TDs against only 4 interceptions, 700-plus yards on the ground, 9 rushing touchdowns. And yet this guy doesn't even make the top 10 in last year's Heisman voting.
Unbelievable.
He had the second-best quarterback rating in the nation behind who? Jameis Winston. Second time he's had the second best quarterback rating to the Heisman winner, Manziel the year before. Here's the thing. In order for him to get to New York this year, he needs to have a similar type big season, touchdown-wise, low interceptions. But here's the thing. Like I said, he needs to lead the Ducks to the Final Four. He needs to have a big game against Stanford on November 1st. Because here's something the committee's going to keep an eye on. They know this stat as well as I do. Marcus Mariota is 23-1 against the rest of the nation. He's 0-2 against Stanford.
Wow.
Oh boy.
Good point.
Sean, what are you looking at? Who are you looking at that might be getting lost in all the Winston and Mariota hype?
Who's getting lost is my dark horse candidate for the year 2014, Bo Wallace of Ole Miss. And I remember
he's their quarterback, right, Sean?
He's their quarterback.
Ole Miss,
he reminds me of when I would watch Eli Manning. I guess it was 9
Old
years
Miss
ago.
quarterback.
Yeah, another former
A
Ole Miss
guy who
quarterback.
spent a lot of time in college and threw a lot of yards and brought excitement to a team that's usually at the bottom of the SEC West. Of all the SEC quarterbacks, it's Bo Wallace who has started the most games and thrown the most yards. He's been, and I look for how they do in their duels in the competitive games. And watching Bo Wallace, even in games he lost last year, some really exciting games. Texas A&M they played, they lost 41-38. That was an absolutely fantastic game.
Barn burner.
He also lost the Egg Bowl to rival Mississippi in overtime, 17-10. But they did beat Georgia Tech in a bowl, 25-17. That was another game where he really stood out to me. So with his credentials of just throwing that big yardage, nobody's looking at him, but I give him a legitimate shot. I also would have put Braxton Miller at the absolute top of my list, but he is out for the year. Good news is, though, he will be coming back to play in 2015.
Yeah, he got a medical red shirt.
And so we're wondering, how will Ohio State fare? Everybody's got him in the top 5. I don't think any of you guys are picking him to be in the last of the 4 teams. But 2 years ago, Urban Meyer's first season, they went undefeated and ran the table. So I say with Ohio State, absolutely anything is possible. I would have also put on the top of my list, if he would have stayed like he should have, Johnny Manziel as a Heisman candidate. He's been getting that choice right now. He's playing for the Browns. You know?
You like Everett Golston, though? What do you think of him? Returning to Notre Dame?
He played in the national championship game. 2 other quarterbacks playing right now in Winston and Nick Marshall out of Auburn, who's also a candidate. He's one of 3 players who have played in a national championship game. He threw about 60% in that year. He's expected to improve on that. Threw 12 TDs in that 2012 season. He's expected to improve on that. He's got a rocket arm, so that always puts him in contention. Notre Dame also has a very difficult schedule, which would help them out. I mean, they are in the top 20 of most players. Anything can happen with them. So he will be looked at. The big key for them is beating Michigan early in the season. I think it's September 6th, right around there.
And don't sleep on young Mr. The running back out of Wisconsin.
Now on to the new coaches.
Always look at the running backs from Wisconsin.
Now on to the new coaches. Penn State, Texas, and USC are three of college football's marquee programs, and of late they've struggled. Each has a new head coach who will be tasked with returning gridiron glory to the university, and they'll be under a very large, very constant spotlight while they do. Sean, start us off with the new head man at Penn State.
Well, I'm also looking at Bill O'Brien in a sense. You know, he was a transition guy. People really, they're lauding him with a lot of credit of taking over during a very difficult time.
Oh, yeah.
I wish he would have stayed longer.
I do too.
Yeah,
I think
he should have.
I think overall that's the better position because NFL coaches, you have 1 or 2 bad years and that's about it. But he could have really become an institution at Penn State.
He could have.
So I think in their search they were looking for a guy like that. So the new
But
coach,
one that would stick around.
Yeah.
one that will
who'd
stick
stay
around. That's the point.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be given a lot of leeway because nobody's expecting 10 wins this year from Penn State.
No.
So if he gets 7, 8 wins, he's going to be given a lot of breathing rooms. So they look at his success at Vanderbilt. He took over a team that was about 4-20 and then brought him to 3 straight bowls.
Yeah.
Now, how well does turning around the mighty Vanderbilt and then
Hey, you know what? You got to give James Franklin a lot of credit for turning Vanderbilt
They were
around.
awful before
And
he
he's got some
there.
huge shoes to fill.
They also like his attitude at Penn State. A lot less serious, more fun-loving.
He's positive and energetic.
They've been ranked as the highest recruiting class of the Big Ten. So he's off to a good start, but we got to see how the games play out. I expect that he's going to be there for half a decade at least.
That'd be good for
Could
them.
be.
Melvin Gordon is the running back at Wisconsin. His name I could not remember. I'm looking at Charlie Strong out at Texas. Gets to replace the institution that was Mac Brown.
Yes,
and you know what? I got to give the man some credit.
Yeah.
Doing it his way already. Strong on discipline, accountability. He's kicked 6 players off the team, suspended 2 more indefinitely. He's been rather blunt.
Yes.
You could say he pulled a Jurgen Klinsmann, said they will not contend for a national title this season, but I do believe they can be a factor in the Big 12.
That'll
They
be
have a
good.
top 10 caliber
too.
defense,
That'd be very good.
which bodes well for a guy like Charlie Strong, who has a defensive background. The pro-style offense that he kind of wants to bring in, not there quite yet. Largely, they have some uncertainty at the quarterback position.
spot.
Injury and inexperience
Yeah.
are the 2 guys competing there. But I got to give this guy learned at the feet of some of the greats of the game. You got Lou Holtz, Steve Spurrier, Urban Meyer. 23-3 his last 2 seasons at Louisville after 7-6 his first 2.
Wow.
Went to bowl games each of those 4 years, going 3-1. This is a guy who's shown he can turn a program around. Now, granted, Louisville doesn't have the same cachet in the
No.
college football game as
Not
Texas
yet.
does, so there will be a rather bright spotlight in Austin on him. But here's the thing. I think you got to give him bare minimum 2 years of leeway so he can recruit the type of players he wants to fit the systems he wants to run. If he's given that opportunity, I think he will eventually return next Texas to the national title picture.
Well, I'm looking at Steve Sarkisian at USC. Now, I personally like Ed Ogeron, and he did a tremendous job turning USC around. In fact, they were 6-1 under him last year, and they got rid of Lane Kiffin, who both Jay and I totally despise. So,
From the beginning, or
well,
Oh, yeah, could not
right
stand
from the
him.
beginning, I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
like Lane Kiffin, and he
rubbed us the wrong way.
and he was awful. So you brought in Sarkisian. Now
wasn't
he has
the easiest time to take over
True.
USC.
well, no, but I mean, Sarkisian came in. He had the experience as being an offensive coordinator at
Under
USC
Pete Carroll.
under Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll wanted him to come back and coach this team.
How many times did I say on the show that that's the guy they could have
I mean,
done
he
something to
turned
keep him?
Carson Palmer around. He turned Matt Leinart around, and both of them are NFL quarterbacks, probably largely because of Sarkisian. He was highly successful at Washington, and he turned their program around 34-27 in 4 years he was there. Now the question is, can he get USC back to the prominent level as he did with Washington? And that will take a lot of effort, but I think he has age on his side. He's only 40 years old, and I think he has the cachet of having been at USC. So now let's see if he has the magic to turn this around.
You
Gonna
guys
be
don't
under
like-
pressure.
Yes,
they
he
have
will.
lost
Go.
LA to UCLA
Yes,
right now.
they
you guys
have,
don't like
definitely.
Lane Kiffin that
No,
much, but
can't
he's
stand him.
being given a huge opportunity to
Yeah,
come
Saban
back and
taking
go
him on
on.
his
Yeah.
offense coordinator. He's
Right.
one of those
That's a
guys, in my
surprise.
estimation, better off being a coordinator. He just is
Yeah.
not good as a head
I
coach.
think it's
Yeah,
more.
that's
I think it's
exactly how
just-
I see him.
I think you guys are just not giving the dude that he came in at the most difficult time.
Yeah.
And so then if he could come back right and just in 2 years with another Alabama championship, he's right back in a head coaching position.
Okay, let's go to the game of the year. Every year, the experts dub one matchup the game of the year. This year, there doesn't seem to be a single clear-cut nominee for that title. But there are 3 on the schedule that our panel believe are must-see TV. Jay, which game are you looking at?
I'm going to be looking at one on the 6th of September. Number 4 Oregon against number 7 Michigan State. This is an early season statement game for both teams. The winner will be scoring some major points with the selection committee. Michigan State is the defending Big Ten champs. They're bringing one of the nation's best defenses, led by defensive end Shalik Calhoun out west to take on one of the nation's best offenses in the Oregon Ducks, led by Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback Marcus Mariota. Flip side for each team. That's Michigan State's offense, Oregon's defense. It's going to be a really big early season test to see where they're at, how much they need to improve upon. The loser's not necessarily out of the Final Four picture, but they will likely have to run the table, win their conference to keep their name in the conversation.
Jay, that'll be the lowest rated game of the year ever.
Well,
yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Speaking of games that I think will be highly rated and looked at, I think the Stanford-USC game will be another game.
Same Saturday.
On the same Saturday. And this really has a chance to be a great matchup because what we're looking at is Stanford, their smash-mouth offensive style, led by Kevin Hogan, who is very dangerous coming out of the pocket and throwing. He also has Barry Sanders Jr. running the ball. So how cool is
showcase some moves that are evoking
much like
memories
his
of his
father.
I will be watching that.
How
Thank
cool
you,
is
Steve.
that? You're quite welcome. And also with USC, you've got Cody Kessler, who's improving as we speak as a quarterback. He has Nelson Aguilar, and he'll have George Farmer.
George Farmer coming back off injury.
Yeah, and so now the question is, which one of them will be able to stop the other one? But I think it's a matchup of 2 really diverse offenses, and it'll be fun to watch.
Yep. Sean.
I'm looking at the Iron Bowl. Alabama against Auburn. They're both highly ranked. Auburn.
That'll be a good one.
Auburn has an absolutely treacherous schedule this year. They may come off, I don't know if they're going to be able to win 8 of their last 9 games. So they might not be in the picture when it comes late, and they'll never be able to live up to what we saw last year with what may have been the best college football game in the last 100 years. But nevertheless, Nick Marshall behind the absolutely tremendous line. I think he's going to make a lot of things happen with his feet. So I hope that he keeps Auburn in contention all year. Alabama will be top quality. I think Auburn will be looking to knock Alabama off. Somewhat similar to last season, and that's why I'm going to be watching that game.
Always a good one.
That is a good one.
The BCS is fouling no more. For the first time, Division I football will determine its champion through a playoff format. How will the teams be selected? How will the games play out? Is 4 teams the right amount? Is the playoff format good for the game? Our guys are going to weigh in on all these questions. Jay, start us off. How will the Final Four be determined?
All right, you got a 13-member committee that'll start kicking out rankings October 28th.
Now, who makes up that committee?
There are 10 of the 13 have either played, coached, or been an athletic director at the Division I level.
So a guy like Mac Brown would be?
Could be, but there are some
Could be.
former coaches. He's not on it, but some interesting people that do stand out. Condoleezza Rice is on this committee.
Oh, she's on.
As is
Really?
the guy who's the former superintendent at the Air
My
Force.
God.
And one of the guys who covers college football for USA Today
Barry
for the last
Alvarez
30
is on
years.
that team
Yes,
also.
Alvarez is. There's a
Yeah.
couple of the guys. Tyrone Willingham is on there.
Good. Okay. That's a
Tom
good choice.
Osborne. So
Good.
there's a lot of good guys on there.
Good
Here's the
choices.
thing. The top 4 teams at the time of the final rankings on December 7 make the playoffs. Semifinals, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. Played New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. They will not play on Sundays, as we know that belongs to the NFL.
Yep.
Title game will be played on a Monday, at least 6 days after New Year's Eve. This year, that's going to be the 12th of January. Rankings will be based on win-loss, strength of schedule, head-to-head, results against common opponents, opponents' win-loss, and opponents' record. I know you guys love that one. Video analysis, statistical ranking, and committee member expertise will also factor in. Here's what will not be factored in. No computer rankings of any kind.
Hallelujah.
No RPI type ratings of any kind.
Yes.
No AP or coaches polls will be
Yes.
used.
Yes.
The Rose, Cotton Sugar, Orange Fiesta, and Peach Bowls will rotate hosting the semifinals. Rose and Sugar get the honors this season. The venue for the title game is going to be determined by a bidding process. This year it's AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys and the Cotton Bowl. They will host the title game. That's how it all breaks out.
Cool.
Steve,
Yes.
13 people just get together in a room and decide.
Pretty
That's
much.
how
the
it's going to be done.
computers.
That's
That'll
You have
be
the
good.
human computers this
Yeah,
year.
the real
I think
deal this
the
year.
arguments are going to come around like who should be 3 and 4 rather than 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Steve,
That's
you
gonna be
think
fun.
is the playoff format good for the game?
I
We're
am
talking about this.
Let me tell you, Jay, I am so thrilled that we're finally having a playoff format. We've talked about this
Yes, we have,
before.
yes.
You know, the BCS, and you could take the C
See,
out,
which I often did.
which you did a lot last year, and I don't blame you. It is about time we have a playoff format. This is about as fair as it can be done. I think having 13 live bodies, real people to actually evaluate this will be great, especially for the 1 and number 2 teams. 3 and 4 may be a little bit of a controversy, but you know what? It's so much better than that BSC garbage that we've been looking at for years, and it's like voodoo magic as to who's number 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's crazy.
Sean?
I don't like this system at all. I think it's way too arbitrary because you have 13 people, and as opposed to computers, people come in with biases. You guys are USC fans. You'd always
we
be
are.
looking at them more
Absolutely.
favorably.
Well,
You know,
that's
somebody
true.
from a certain part of the country is going to look for teams from that part of the country more favorably. So I don't like how just this small select group, this reeks of absolute elitism.
Well, here's
it's like
the
a little
thing.
oligarchy now that controls college
Granted,
football.
while each of them has their own regional or homeschool bias, they're each offsetting each other.
Exactly.
I don't think it does, because eventually, you know, it'll be like the United States Supreme Court. It's like you're always trying to vote trade. I'll give you a vote for this case, but next year I want you to be on my side. I think that this is just going to reek of more corruption than you could ever imagine in the long
Wow.
run.
It's
I don't
coming
think it'll
from a
be-
lawyer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
well,
think
that's
this will
a
be
lawyer's
around for all that
perspective.
long.
What do you want to do?
Yeah,
Go
well,
back
how
to
would
the
you
old
do
bowl
it?
system?
They're never going to do that. I mean, that's what I prefer. I have watched a lot less baseball because I think the purity of it has been absolutely destroyed with the institution of replay. With college football, there is no way I will miss a game in the playoff series. But I think it benefited the players overall and the schools overall to just have one game at the end of the year, and the winners get a ring, and then they move on, and everybody is always whining, number one. Forget that conversation. The bigger thing is just having the bowl game at the end of the year.
Yeah, but you
in my
know
opinion.
what?
But
It's
now
the way
we'll
it's got to
know.
be.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to be ranked.
Right.
Somebody's ranked
Exactly.
number 1 in the preseason. Somebody's got to be ranked number 1 when
And now we'll
everything is all
actually
said
know
and
who the
done.
heck is number
Just
1
the way
for
it's
a
got to
change.
go. I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
Sean, and I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect way. I mean, I think
No.
there should be an 8-team playoff, but that's
That
just
would've been
me.
even
I think we're headed there. I think in a
Well,
decade
that
that's
would
where
be
we're
even
gonna
better
go.
if we ever
For
get to that
starters,
level.
because
For
you know
starter
what?
force.
They got to see how it's going to go. But
Yes.
I'm telling you, they're not done tweaking me.
No,
yet.
this is a good start.
This is a very good start. That music means it's time for the 3-minute warning. Sean, lead off.
Daniel Coleman, a 23-year-old professional poker player from just outside Boston, won a $15.3 million event at the World Series of Poker. And he did something more remarkable than beating the other 40 players in the $1 million to buy an event. Instead of basking in the glory of the attention that comes with receiving the second largest ever prize awarded in the World Series of Poker, like almost everybody else would have done, he respectfully declined requests to be interviewed by various reporters and ESPN, who hosts and broadcasts the event 20 times a day.
Wow.
Mr. Coleman voiced that he does not want to be depicted as someone who promotes the game of poker. Mr. Coleman, despite his very young age, 23 again, recognizes that for most, poker is a losing proposition, and he just does not want to encourage others to participate in such a vice. This is very admirable. While Mr. Coleman is good enough to play with anybody for huge stakes, he recognizes that most others should not do the same.
Johnny Manziel, talented but lots to learn. Johnny, remember how great your life was back in 2012 when you were the toast of College Station, winning the Heisman Trophy at Texas A&M as a freshman quarterback? Shockingly, you dissected the number 1 team, Alabama, in a game for the ages. Despite your coming out party playing like a young Tarkenton, your off-the-field indiscretions and irreverent behavior surfaced nonetheless. Still, the young man with the golden arm and dazzling speed was largely forgiven. In early 2014, you proclaimed yourself bored and ready for the NFL. The Cleveland Browns, a team incredibly desperate for talent and devoid of respect, drafted you in the second round in the hopes that your talents will turn them around. Really? Really? Johnny, is this any way to lead a team back to respectability? Flaunting your disgusting middle finger to the Redskins on a national TV game? Is this any way to demonstrate leadership, heart, poise, and cool in the spotlight? Not a chance in hell. If you can't handle the opposition taunting and the hits you're going to get, just wait till defenders rip through your offensive line and slam your butt to the turf. Yeah. You think they can't wait to get their hands on hotshot, immature clowns like you? Keep it up, Johnny, and the NFL will be the no-fun league. Then you'll wish you were back at Texas A&M clamoring for attention again.
Yeah, and they get my Steelers week 1. My colleague Stephen D. Ferguson has, more than once, described the San Antonio Spurs as boringly efficient, implying that being bold just isn't in their wheelhouse. But on August 5th, the NBA champs did something that the adjective bold just doesn't do justice. They threw a brick through a glass ceiling and hired one of the WNBA's best ever, Becky Hammon, as a full-time assistant coach. Head coach Greg Popovich and Hammon shared a flight home after the 2012 Summer Olympics, and for the most part, they did not talk basketball. The fact that she could have a conversation on subjects beyond how to guard the pick and roll made an impression on Pop, as did watching her display the inside-outside game that made her an all-star despite being an undersized point guard. This led to Hammond becoming a coaching intern with the Spurs this past season while she rehabbed an ACL injury. She was at practices, meetings, film sessions, and was behind the bench during home games. So when Hammond said she wanted to coach, Pop was intrigued. When Popovich hired Hammond, not once did he mention she was a woman, just that he was confident her basketball IQ, work ethic, and interpersonal skills would be a great benefit to the Spurs. Hammond said she doesn't think Pop gives 2 cents that she's a woman. She doesn't want to be hired because she's a woman. The important point, she said, was, quote, "I'm getting hired because I'm capable." Amen, Becky.
Congratulations to Major League Baseball's Chief Operating Officer, Rob Manfred, who was voted unanimously by the owners of the 30 MLB teams to replace Bud Selig when his term ends in January. He and Selig have given the game much-needed stability as attendance and revenues rose sharply. Instant replay implemented, expanded playoffs introduced, as well as peacefully negotiating agreements with the Players Union and even implementing tough drug and steroid testing policies with the union's blessing. Of course, there are some owners, most notably Jerry Reinsdorf of the Chicago White Sox, trying to rile up things by promoting co-Red Sox owner Tom Werner, who was more successful as a TV producer.
Boy.
Remember the Cosby Show?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
But when Werner sensibly pulled out, Manfred got their votes. Isn't it interesting that since the infamous 1994 strike, baseball is the only major sport that has not experienced a work stoppage? A lesson well learned by the owners and people in charge of our national pastime. To quote a certain beer maker, Rob, this sput's for you.
Nice.
All right.
For Jay Kaplan, Steve Ferguson, and Sean Roman, I'm Pedro Hazel Jr. Thanks for spending part of your evening with us. We'll see you on September 4th for another edition of On the Sports Lines. Remember, if you want to see the show again or catch up on any of the ones you might have missed, check us out at youtube.com/onthesportslines. And check out the latest blog piece at onthesportslines.blogspot.com. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.